All right, it's Black Friday and I'm taking you guys shopping with me. Now, you guys know I wouldn't be doing that. The only thing black we might be doing on Black Friday is painting one. So let's go ahead and get it done. All right guys, we're back in the building and today we're gonna do some prep work with you. I'm gonna show you how I prep them out, what grits from blends to new parts and used parts as well. So I haven't done a video in a while on prep work and I'm gonna go ahead and do this one with you here. Today we have two BMWs that we're gonna be prepping out. We have one SUV and then we have one sedan. All right, this is the SUV. We've got a lower lift gate and a new bumper for this one, and it is code 300. So these are the two parts we're going to be doing off of the SUV one there. We have a little bit of work to do on the rear body though, nothing major. So we're going to put these parts in the booth together with the next job, and let me take you over there and show you that. All right, so this is the sedan I was telling you guys about, and this is also code 300, and we went ahead and pulled the fenders off the car for production. That way the body man can continue on. The car don't have to be in my area. He can do stuff to get it that much further ahead, and while I'm painting it, this car could be that much closer. So this is the one we're going to be doing here. So while I'm over here at the jobs, I like to evaluate them and see what we got here. It looks like our hood is going to be shiny underneath. I always like to duplicate what it had before, so I always go over to the vehicle, check underneath the hoods, the trunks, to make sure they're satin or cleared, and this one is definitely a cleared hood, so we'll take that into account when we go ahead and paint it. And that's all we're going to have to worry about on this one as far as the gloss level underneath on the cut-in part. So let's go back over and show you the parts we're going to be prepping for this one. All right, so these are the parts. We've got two fenders off the vehicle, and then we got a used hood and a new OE bumper. So we ordered an aftermarket hood, it didn't fit well, and now we went ahead with an OE, and this is a clean hood, so we're looking good on this. So we're gonna go ahead and start prepping these out, and I'll show you guys how I do it. All right, we got all our parts laid out now. I like to get everything situated on the stands that I'm gonna be actually painting them on. That way that's one step closer to getting them in the booth. So we've got our new bumper here for the sedan we're doing, and here's the used hood that we got. It's kind of funny because underneath this hood it isn't cleared. For the gray, they're not clearing them from BMW. This is a factory paint job. You guys can see it's got the clear on the edge, and then it fades in to the satin like we did in one of the last videos when I was showing you the factory cut-in job I did. But that's what they did on this. I guess they do different things for different colors at the factory, and on these here they don't clear them. So first thing I do is I lay my hood upside down because I want to prep the inside first. That way I don't sand the top first and then flip it over and leave marks all on top of this. You guys know the stands sometimes have different things on them to get them dirty again. So I prep the inside first, then I flip it over and I do the outside on these used hoods. And then here's the fenders. These are just going to be cleaned up and 800 on this one, and we'll go ahead and do that. And then we got a little bit of primer that I put on this one the night before because I knew I was waiting on a part for this, but I wanted to be that much ahead. So I think ahead, that way when that part comes, you don't have to prime the part. Get everything primed up, that way when the part you're waiting on arrives, you're able to just jump on that job without having to now prime something. So think ahead when you got primer in the gun. Look around the shop and there might be something that you could prime and be that much ahead. So now when that job comes over, or you're waiting on the piece that you need for that job, you don't have any downtime. You could just jump on it, your primer's dry, and you can keep rolling. So that's how I do it. I look around and see what I got in the shop that I can get ahead of, especially if I'm waiting on work. I'll start looking around to see what's coming and when it's coming. So these here fenders, we're gonna get these things cleaned up and prepped. And I wanted to show you these clamps I have. I made these clamps up a while back. They were just clamps from Home Depot, but I made different welded rods on them, and these type of things can help in the painting, definitely odd jobs. Also, these clamps here, these just cheap ones, work well when you're trying to hold something like this on the stand. You can just clamp it right on it, boom, and now you got this fender locked in really well. So these are just cheap clamps you can pick up from Home Depot or Lowe's or any of the hardware stores near you guys, but they work really nice to paint stuff, hold stuff, and just something I made through the years that worked really good. I have one other one I'll show you that real quick. And here's the other one I made years back. You guys can see how much paint buildup is on this clamp. Right there is how it's supposed to be, and I have to grind it every so often to get it to get some of that paint off of there, because this thing's getting blasted with paint. But look at how much buildup is on this here clamp and rod. This is just a small little dowel, but over the years it gets buried with paint, and this thing here comes in very, very handy. We've used this for many years through my career, and it holds different stuff in different places. You can do all kinds of stuff with it, and works really well. So just all right, so the first thing you want to do is clean your parts off, and we're going to start off with our used parts. We have a waterborne cleaner here, and then we have our solvent-based cleaner, and both of these will do different things. This will take off a lot of the organic stuff that's on the car, like road grime and stuff from trees. Stuff that this won't take off because it's not the same kind of product. So this is what you want to take off of the petroleum stuff. This will take off any oils, waxes, and stuff like that. And this will take off more of the stuff from the environment. So we use both of these when we're doing our prep work. And we start out with this one here. I have it in a pump bottle with a red Scotch-Brite, and I'll hit all my panels that I'm cleaning with this first. And that's what I like to start with. So let's go ahead and do that first. All right, so we have it in a pump bottle, and one thing I want to let you guys know is make sure you label your pump bottles. If you're using pump bottles, put the product on it and the what's in this, because you don't want to have bottles ever around a shop that's not labeled. That way somebody knows when they pick this up, if you're not there or somebody else goes to use this, they don't grab the wrong product. You want to make sure that you have everything labeled. Mark what's in the bottle that you have. Don't just have bottles laying around with different stuff in it, because that could cause trouble. So we're going to go ahead now with a red Scotch-Brite and clean these up. Let it soak in good. It'll start to loosen up some of that dirt, and then you just go ahead and scuff it and clean it. And you guys can see here that that waterborne cleaner really takes off that stuff from the environment. Any kind of, you know, leaf stuff or dirt. This is the stuff you want to use on these, especially on the white parts. This here waterborne cleaner works well. You could also use like a Purple Power, and Simple Green, stuff like that works well too if you're at the house. So we're going to go ahead and finish cleaning these up, then we'll move into our prep work for the sanding. So now that we got the waterborne cleaned off, we're going to move into our solvent-based cleaner, and we're using the SX330 in a pump bottle here. You see it's labeled. So let's go ahead and wipe this off. That way we get any rest of any contaminants off of this panel here before we actually start sanding it, because you don't want to sand that stuff into the paint. You want to get all that off of there as much as you can before you start sanding down any part of any part. All right, so we got them cleaned off, and you guys seen the panel moving a little on the stand. Zip ties are really something good to hold parts onto these stands. That way you don't lose them. I've had a lot of stuff through the years fly off of stands, and to me the best thing to hold them down is these zip ties. I'll put them around some of the bumpers when I'm putting them on the stands, and also on fenders like this here, we can put them in spots that you won't see. So you don't want to put this to where you're going to paint over the top of it and then have a spot that's missed with paint. But being these are blends, it's not that big of a deal on that. But try to find a spot on the fender or on the part that you're using that's hidden and hold it down. So under here we have a spot we can go to and clamp it down and zip tie it so that way it'll hold. All right, we got it zip tied up now, and now you can see this fender isn't going nowhere, because you guys know we got to slide them in the booth, and sometimes you got to go over humps, and definitely have seen them fly off through the years. So these zip ties definitely work well to keep these parts on these stands, and especially the bumpers. You guys could put a couple up here around inside holes and areas that aren't visible. Make sure when you're doing it, you don't want to make sure you don't cover over something that needs paint on it. And you guys could see the marks here on the stand where I zip tie them up in the past, because it really works well. Sometimes when you bake the bumper, it'll change the shape, and I've seen them fall off the stand and you come back in and the thing's laying on the ground. So the zip ties really help in the prepping of the parts. All right, same thing under the hoods. I go over them with a red Scotch-Brite with the waterborne cleaner and scuff it and clean it. And that does most of the scuffing and cleaning all at one time, especially on the under hoods, and works well. So we're gonna go ahead and scuff this thing up. All right, we went ahead and scuffed it with the waterborne, and we hit it with the wax and grease. And now we're gonna go ahead and run around it with our 360 grit of the Kovacs pads. These really work well, and they're a really nice, they're a cloth style sanding paper, so really good around edges up and around here where a normal paper would get all caught up and scratch and tear. These ones, being a cloth, really work well in these type of areas. So we're gonna go ahead and run around it with this, and then I'm gonna show you what I like to do while this is still flipped over to save you guys headaches later on. All right, now I get my DA, and you guys know these used parts, they take them, they throw them in trucks, and they get nicked up on the edges because they'll slide them in their bins on their trucks as they're transporting them around. So while you have this flipped over, go ahead and hit your edge all around it, and that way you know you don't have any chips later, because you can't see them well when this is flipped over. You'll want to hit the inside now while it's like this, and then go back while it's on the top and do the same thing. So I like to run around it, and I'll show you how I do it. All right, so you see now, if there was any chips, you run around the edge and you knock them out while it's on its back here. So once we blow this off here, I'll run around it a little more, check my edges, we'll blow it and flip it over, and then we'll do the same thing we did on these parts here. We'll clean them with the waterborne, prep saw them, and then we'll start sanding down the top of this thing and getting it ready. That's how I handle my used parts. I like to do the used parts first, because usually they're the most amount of work. So I work from the hardest work first, and then I go to the easiest work, and that's been my best bet on getting things done and in the booth quicker. So let's finish it up. All right, now that that part is fully cleaned and we're ready to go on the outside with it, and on my used parts, I use the 400 DA. You could use 320. I like 400. It's a little bit finer, and to me it works good. So we use 400 DA on the used parts, and we use 400 DA as well on our new parts. And this here brand new E-coated liftgate, we'll be hitting that with the 400 as well. So let's go ahead, sand the hood down, and get this hood finished up. All right, that's the hood fully sanded and very clean hood. Had a couple small chips in it, nothing major, and I sanded them all out. Make sure you sand the edge of this as we did the bottom and check for any chips that may be that are rolled up around the edge a little bit. So that's how I prep out my used parts. And now we're gonna get into the rest of it and finish this video up for you. So I'm gonna show you what I do here. I block my primer with 320. We'll go ahead and guide coat this. There was no Bondo on this at all. It was just metal. I think it was just chipped up, and we went ahead and took care of some of them chips on this. So we're gonna block it just to show you what I would do. And then we're gonna go ahead and hit our blends with the 800 and then prep out our new parts, and we'll have a full load going into the booth. All right, we're gonna hit it with our dry guide coat on the primer. And this is a product that lets you see if there's any imperfection as well as know when you're done sanding. So sometimes I like to use this because it'll get you out of the sanding a lot quicker, because you're not just keep going over a spot. You can't tell when you're done sometimes. So when you guide coat it, it's not just for imperfections. You guys know we really don't have that many in the body shop nowadays, but to me this is definitely a product to speed you up, because once this is gone, you're done. You don't have to keep checking, did you get it good, blow it off, look. When this is gone, you're done. So let's go ahead and hit it on our primer, and then we'll hit it with our block. You guys know we're using the Festool here. We got to switch it over to the manual position. And now those zip ties come in handy, because this thing ain't going nowhere. You can block it right here on the stand and get it done. And you see that when I'm sanding it, you're losing the guide coat, and you know that you're done. So I like it for that reason more than I like it to find imperfections. So usually right away, as long as we've been doing this nowadays in this business, I could see something well before the guide coat. So we'll go ahead and finish blocking, and then I'll show you the next step. All right, so now what I'll do is I'll hit it one more time, and that way when I use my DA to refine down the 320 grit scratch, I'll know when that's done completely. So I like to double guide coat it. And then once this is gone now, I know that I thoroughly sanded this to refine down the block paper, because sometimes you get some small block lines in the product with the primer. So you'll block it, and because that's such a straight and hard surface, you'll want to eliminate some of them lines that you make sometimes with the block. So we're gonna go ahead and refine it now. All right, so we use 400 DA to refine the primer after the block. Now we're gonna hit our blends with the 800, and we'll run around this panel with the K600 on the sky pads to finish this panel up. So this is how I do my prep on every job. I do it the same way. I have a system, and when you have a system, you can get better at it, because you keep doing the same thing over and over, and it makes you get faster and better at it. So don't change what you do from day to day. Do things the right way and just get better at it. That way you can get faster at it, and you get more done through the booth as well as out here. You want to have a system. So let's go ahead and finish this video up. This here is the 600 grit, and this works good on your edges of your blend as well as around the edges of your primer. This stuff works really well, and you can clear over the K600 without any sand scratches. So let's go ahead and finish it up. All right, so these 3 parts are ready to go, and once I get them prepped out, I put them over here and stage them in front of the booth and get them out of the area for the sanding, because these are cleaned and blown off. We will clean them again once we get them in the booth, but I want to keep as much dust off them now that I got them blown and cleaned off pretty good. So we'll get back over here and we'll finish up these parts. All right, so now on our new E-coated parts, I hit them with 400 DA and I run around them with either a red Scotch-Brite or the Kovacs with the 360 on them. So let's go ahead and DA it. All right, that's the new part prepped out, 400 DA, red scuff pad, and the Kovacs 360 around the edges. I don't have to sand the inside of these parts because I'm using a chromatic sealer, which is warranted and guaranteed to stick to the factory E-coat. Because I seal all my new parts and I seal all my used parts every time. I never paint something that's used or new without sanding it. So you guys at home, if you're prepping out a part and you don't have the chromatic sealer, make sure you prep the inside exactly the same way that you did the outside. That way you'll get better adhesion and without that chromatic sealer. So we got 2 bumpers left to prep, and this here will be all done and ready to go in the booth. All right, so these 2 bumpers are the same. They're both BMW. They're for different vehicles, but they're the same primer that's on them. And on these here, I've been doing 800 DA and then running around them with the 600 on the Kovac. So depending on what you're doing for a bumper, if you have a used bumper, you'll do it just like a used part. If you have a new bumper, you'll want to prep it like this, because with these primers they have on these bumpers now, if you start hitting them with a real coarse grit, you'll make little curly cues in the rubber, and then you'll be fighting it when you get it in the booth. So I like to hit them with 800 and then run around them by hand, hit all my edges, and then I'm ready to roll. So we're gonna do that and I'll show them to you finished up. All right, so that's how we do the prep work on a day-to-day basis here at the shop. So I just wanted to show you guys what's going down here, and we're gonna be shooting this one here today. So I won't shoot it with you guys. Go ahead, do the Black Friday thing, but this is how I do it on Black Friday. And you can't beat the deal that I'm giving you, free knowledge. All you gotta do is hit subscribe. That's a pretty good Black Friday deal as far as I'm concerned. So hit the bell, hit the subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one.